Well, with conference basketball kind of winding down, us getting ready for March Madness, a theme you're going to start to hear is the NBA draft. Obviously, we've got a little bit of time to go. The NBA is, nearing their All-Star break, but there's really three big names, and, they're the three names we've really heard even going into this season. And there's three guys. You've got, Paolo Banchero over at Duke. You've got Jabari Smith over at Auburn, and then you've got Chet Holmgren, the Gonzaga Bulldog. And what we're going to talk about today is who is going to be the number one pick in next year's draft. Has anyone really separated themselves during the college basketball season? And kind of do just a deep dive into each one of these three guys.
Sure.
I want to start with Paolo Banchero. I think that this is a guy that, Zeg fans saw early in the season. They did get the best of GU over at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. And for a very early part of this season, I think he was really making his way up the draft boards. And a lot of people, if you took a poll Thanksgiving time on who was going to be the number one pick in the draft, I think Paolo Banchero would have been what a lot of people said.
Yeah, I think he had the edge, in that debate coming out of the high school season. Chet seemed to be leading it. Then it kind of flipped over to Paolo as we entered the college season. And as you said, man, obviously that was the biggest game of the college season, maybe particularly in November, Duke and Gonzaga. And Paolo did get the better of the Bulldogs that night. He had 21 and 5. If you look at his stat line, the shooting percentages may not be eye-popping, but if you watched that game and you watched what Banchero did out there on a night where he was dealing with cramps, he had multiple just dagger shots.
Just on a huge stage.
Yeah, huge stage, absolute daggers that really just seemed to kind of bury the Zags every time they started to get momentum. And what he does is, at 6'10", his ability to get to his spot, which there are a lot of spots for him, but he really does a good job of getting what he wants. He can take advantage of mismatches. He is just an NBA-ready player. You look at him, he does not need to put on weight. He does not need to hit the gym. There's nothing about him that says he couldn't be, forfeit the rest of the college season and go help an NBA team this season. He's that ready.
During that Gonzaga game, I was saying to you that, he got hurt. He had cramps, like you mentioned. In my mind, watching that game, if he was taking over so much that in my mind, if he doesn't get hurt, I'm not sure that game is as close as it was.
Fair.
On the season, he's averaging 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists for that Duke Blue Devil team. Next guy I want to talk about is Jabari Smith. Maybe someone who wasn't on a lot of people's radar going into the season. Chet was the number one recruit coming out of high school. And, Paolo, a lot of people were talking about him as well. I think part of it was that, he was playing on an Auburn team that if you weren't paying attention and not looking into who was going to be good this year, maybe you didn't have Auburn on your radar. You were wrong.
Sure.
And, Jabari Smith's the reason that Auburn got their first ever, number one ranking. This was a kid who has, they've got a lot of talent. Bruce Pearl's got a lot of talent on this Auburn Tiger team. But Jabari Smith is the main reason that this team has a chance to make a legit run to the Final Four. Obviously, we've seen recently that they have some issues, but even that game versus Arkansas that they just lost, you just watched him down the stretch. And you want to talk about being a dude, stepping up in key moments. It looked like you took a NBA All-Star and said, hey, this team's down, 8 with 2 minutes left. Go out there and see how close you can make it. And he just hit shot after shot.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, man. Without Jabari Smith out there, that game is not close at the end. Auburn's going to lose by a lot. I think he had 2 just massive threes in that overtime period that really kept it close. And you watch him play. This is a 6'10", prototypical NBA small forward. It's not like with Paolo. Do you play him a small forward? Do you play him power forward? Sure. Jabari Smith is a small forward.
Yep.
He has NBA size. He's got an elite ball handle for his size. He's an above average athlete. And let's not to mention, he shoots 43% or 40% from three. And that's on 5 attempts a game too. So this is not a guy who's putting up 2 threes a game and shooting high percentage. He really can hunt that shot, whether it's off the dribble or off the catch. It's a smooth, quick release. And the problem with that, you add in his size and his shooting, great, you want to close out. Well, he can also get to the rim at an elite level too. So very, very difficult player to guard. We talked about it kind of before the show. He might be one of those guys where you look in recent drafts, and out of recent drafts, he's going to have one of the highest floors I think we've seen of these top 3 picks. He's just, he's going to be a very, very solid NBA player, most likely an all-star. He's just that type of skill set and that type of player.
When you talk about draft prospects, a lot of times that is what you talk about is floors and ceilings. And the NBA, more than really any league out there, has really shifted to going after guys with the highest ceiling. I look at Jabari Smith and I think he has, out of these 3, the highest floor. I think his floor is, if he stays healthy, I always got to put that caveat out there. If he stays healthy, I think his floor is this kid's going to be an NBA All-Star. Not saying he's going to be an All-Star every year, but that's his floor. I mean, his game's just ready. His ceiling is high as someone like, Chet, who we're about to talk about, that maybe we've never seen anyone like him in all of college basketball's history. Maybe not, maybe the length and the height and all that, but Jabari Smith's just a kid that, kind of like we talked about with Paolo, or you could stick him on an NBA team right now and he's probably going to be a top 2 or 3 scorer on half the league today. And so that's really what you get with his game. Before we talk about the last prospect we're going to spend a majority of our time talking about, and that is Chet Holmgren, I do want to go over a few mock drafts. I think that there's some interesting trends going on here, starting with CBS Sports. Right now, they've got Chet Holmgren going number 1 to Orlando. Can you imagine how much fun it would be to watch him play with his high school teammate Jalen Suggs, who really is coming into his own for the Orlando Magic? We did see Jalen just last night, had an off night. They were in Portland, had a couple days off before they went to Utah. He actually came to the kennel, chilled in the student section a little bit. Yeah. He never got to play in front of students in Spokane, so that was a lot of fun to see as well. But could you imagine how much fun it would be to watch those two play in Orlando? Finishing out the CBS Sports mock draft, you've got Jabari Smith going number 2 and Paolo Banchero going number 3. Now you go to NBADraft.net. They have Jabari Smith going number 1. They've got Chet going number 3 and Paolo going number 5. Jaden Ivey going number 2, who's just killing it for Purdue. And then AJ Griffin from Duke actually going ahead of his teammate at Duke.
I don't know about that one, NBA draft, but I mean,
yeah,
we'll find out.
And Tankathon has Jabari Smith going number 1, Chet number 2 to Orlando, and Paolo going number 3 overall. Moving on to Chet Holmgren. I mean, we said it before. I mean, you've heard he's the unicorn. Here's the deal, and I want to start this with this conversation about Chet Holmgren. If you have not watched him play, you may say, well, we've seen these skinny guys, come through and da-da-da-da-da. It's a lazy assessment. I'm going to need you to
put it lightly.
Don't just go watch his high school film. Go watch really since, the calendar year turned. And when we saw, early on in the season, and we get so used to wanting these kids to come right out and be, what their ceiling is. And we saw with Jalen Suggs last year. He even said it last night that I struggled to just get acquainted to the college game. You could play on, one of the best high school basketball teams in the country, which Chet and Jalen did at Minnehaha in Minnesota. And guess what? Playing Division I college basketball is like playing the best high school team you've ever played every single night. It doesn't matter if you're in the ACC, the WCC, the Big Sky. The worst team in the Big Sky would win a state championship in most states. And I don't think people realize that it takes a minute to get acquainted. And I think a lot of people expected Chet to come in and just wow right off the bat. And Chet you didn't watch his game and go, wow, Chet's really struggling. You just saw that, he's being a little passive.
Yep.
We heard some quotes from Brian Michelson that, he was passing up shots that we wanted him to take early in the season. And you've got that. You've also got the fact that he was playing alongside the Naismith preseason player of the year in Drew Timme.
Yeah.
And I think when me and you were watching, we were at some of those early games in the season, their loss versus Alabama and Seattle. And I think our main takeaway was this coaching staff and these two guys just haven't really figured out how to play alongside each other yet. And we're talking about Drew Timme and Chet Holmgren. Well, it was very clear. They kind of made it through winter break. They had a COVID pause. And again, when the calendar year changed, we really saw a whole new beast in Chet Holmgren. We saw a kid who is aggressive. He's definitely got that confidence. If you have never watched, through all of that, if you've never watched Chet Holmgren step onto a floor, which please just pause this video and go watch it. Tell our viewers out there what they're getting in a freakish 7-footer who is playing for the Gonzaga Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, if you're that viewer that's never watched him, you're going to go look up a video, and you've probably got an idea in your head of what you're about to see. You look at his stats, his physical stats, you see 7'1", 195. You look at his points per game, his rebounds, and you're like, okay, I think I know what I'm about to see.
15 points per game.
You turn on the tape, you're going to be blown away. We have never seen somebody like Chet with the skill set that he has in every different facet of the game.
Exactly.
It's just unbelievable. 7'1", with handles like he does. Maybe the only person we've seen close in college is KD.
A 7-footer who can handle the rock as well as he does.
Yep. 7'1", who shoots the way he does. Again, maybe the only player you've seen like it in college.
Pause. He's shooting now over 45% from three.
Yeah.
He struggled early in the year.
He's 20 of 32 since the start of the new year. That's 62%.
Yeah.
So, again, somebody at his size who shoots the way he does, maybe the only person we've seen in college do that is probably KD.
Well, let's pause on that real quick. We actually have those stats. I mean, KD spent 1 year at Texas. And he shot 40% from three, which for a 7-footer is great. Chet has a legit possibility to finish the season shooting over 10% better, shooting 50% from three.
Yeah. What was he, 47% right now, I
He
believe?
just keeps creeping his way up.
Yeah, just keeps creeping up. And then you look at the fact, too, he's averaging like 3.5 blocks a game. And this is, you just don't get somebody who is that skilled, ball handling, shooting, defensively. And I mean, when you talk about a shot blocker as well, you can't just look at the blocks. Because when he blocks 3.5 a game, he is altering probably an additional 5 to 7 shots a game that are missing because of his contest.
100%.
So that's the thing with shot blocking stats. You always have to account for that. And, on top of that, he's everything. I think he's kind of a mix. He reminds me of a mix of KD and what people wanted Kristaps Porzingis to be.
Absolutely.
Because he's got that dog in him. He's tough down low.
Well,
and he's one of the most efficient scorers at the rim in college as well. He's just unbelievable.
We have to make a bigger point of what you just said. And he's got that dog in him because a lot of people look at the baby face, they look at the stature, and again, a very lazy assessment to say, well, he's soft. Well, you're saying that because he's 7 foot, 195, but he has, I mean, I'll just say this. When you think of a dog, a guy who wants a little bit of that heat, you think of a guy like Draymond Green in the NBA, right? If you could have, every team would love to have a guy like Draymond on their team who wants that fire. Chet has that. I mean, it's easy to look at him and go, well, he's tall, so he probably can't handle the rock. Wrong. Well, he's tall, so he can't shoot. Wrong. Well, he's skinny, so he's probably soft. Wrong. Like, you just keep checking him off.
Well, and we've talked about it too. Physicality is more of a mentality than it is size. There are plenty of big guys. You look at the NBA, every team has one. There are plenty of big guys who are soft. It is a decision you make as a player whether or not you want to embrace contact and you want to embrace that smoke. And Chet does. He wants that. When we talked about his shooting, of the top 5 in D1 field goal percentage leaders, 4 have taken no more than 3 3-pointers on the season. Chet has now taken 71, and he's in the top 5 of D1 field goal percentage leaders.
That's this year. I mean, we don't have some extensive stats department to look into this, but here's the deal. If we looked over time, if you took the top 5 field goal percentage guys in college basketball, I would almost guarantee that we would never find a top 5 guy who's probably put up over 23s in a season. No. It's just, if you're going to be top 5 in field goal percentage, you're getting most of your looks around the rim, like a Drew Timme.
Yep.
Kind of like a Luka Garza style player. You're not shooting how many threes?
71, I believe, at this point.
And we still have time left in the season.
Yep, we do, man. And his true shooting percentage is 73.6%. That would be good for the second highest effective field goal percentage in the last 30 years in D1. It's just, again, you can't really put him in somebody else's shoes. This is just somebody that we've never seen on a college basketball court. And the scary part of all of this, I know we just sat here and talked him up like no one believes. The scary part of all of this is that he is still getting better every single night. Yeah. We have not seen Chet Holmgren's ceiling. And we talked about it. If they want to win a championship, he has to be that dude, and he is becoming that dude in front of our eyes.
He's also, I mean, again, you just kind of get into like, well, what's the negative? I mean, so you got two guys here who are drooling all over Chet Holmgren. Like, give me, here's the deal. I love Jabari Smith. I really do. I love Paolo Banchero. Paolo was a kid who had GU on his short list. I would have loved to see him on this team.
Them.
If you told me you're an NBA GM and you're not going to get to choose, but you're going to get one of these three, great. Like, I'm going to be stoked with any one of the three, because in my mind, any one of these three can be
change a franchise
100% and be a 15, 20-year guy who can put a franchise on his back. I really believe that. Obviously, we're not around the Duke program or the Auburn program like we are this Gonzaga program. But here's the other thing with Chet that I think's very impressive about him is that, Coach Few has gone on record several times is saying Chet's one of the most coachable guys Few's ever had at Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
He's never had a number one overall player coming out of high school.
Yeah.
And you see it. If you go to games at the Kennel, you see that coachability. You see him come off the floor, and Fewey's always going to have something to say to you when you come off the floor. He's always going to be coaching you up.
Every time.
I remember, I think some people were caught off guard recently when Chet had like a double-double going into half. He was on his way to a potential triple-double. This was a few weeks ago. And on national television, Few did a halftime interview, which he doesn't do often. And he kind of like lit into Chet a little bit in terms of like, hey, we can't have him, turning the ball over like he did the last couple minutes. And all these people are like, come on, Few, he has a double-double. Well, Chet goes on Twitter after the game and was like, he should have. Like, it's not acceptable. And it just goes to show you the intelligence, the humbleness of this kid. And I think you
desire to be great.
And that's exactly what you said earlier is, a lot of these kids who go into the NBA, they have the physical tools. They say, oh my gosh, he has a 7-foot wingspan. His broad jump is this much, da-da-da-da-da. The difference between, a prospect and a pro is this. And it's the ability to have what's inside of you. Mm-hmm. Do you have the ability to be great? Are you a intelligent player? There's a lot of players who do well in college because they're just a lot more athletic.
Just that much better. Mm-hmm.
And to get to the next level and to be an all-star and an all-NBA guy, you have to have it all. You have to have the physical tools and you have to have the mental tools, and this kid sure does look like he has all of it. I want to go over just a few other stats that I thought were really interesting, and it's comparing KD in his 1 year in college to Chet. And you mentioned, here's the deal. Chet is averaging one more block per game. KD, for those of you who maybe weren't even old enough to watch KD in college, he was that Texas team was not as good as what this Gonzaga team is. He was he was playing 35 minutes a game, putting up high volume because he had to. Mm-hmm. Chet's only playing 25 minutes a game for this Gonzaga team, which, if you take Chet off of this team, this is still a top 5 team in the country. But you go back to some of KD's stats, in college. One thing I want to say first off is going into the NBA, KD only weighed 215 pounds, right? He weighs 240 now. And so,
according to the stat sheet, he weighed 215.
Chet weighed 190 when he stepped on campus.
Yep.
By November, we heard he was at 195. You look at him now, wouldn't be surprised if he's 200, 202. As we start, by the end of the season, is he 205? I think there's a very real, we said it before we went on air. Before he steps on the court of an NBA team next season, could Chet, with a full NBA offseason of training, get to 220 pounds? I think he could.
Yeah.
And that's going to change a lot of these different things. But as you look at, KD's 1 year in college versus Chet's 1 year in college, you really have to take their per 40 minutes because, Chet's not going to play as many minutes as KD did, and they're almost identical. Chet is just more efficient is really what it boils down to. Chet would be averaging almost as many points per game, possibly shooting at a 5 to 10% better clip from three, shooting better from the field. I think part of that, like you mentioned earlier, is KD had to put up a lot of volume on that team. But you really look at it, and I don't think we're wrong to say that it really is just a more efficient version of what we saw KD at Texas.
Yeah, and, does he turn into KD at the NBA level? You can't say that. I think it's hard to say. One, obviously, KD has just gotten better every year. He's one of the best players in the NBA, and there's people out there who think he is the best. So, that's a debate for another day. But what you do know is that there are just not many comparisons on this planet for Chet Holmgren. That is just what there is. Chet already has a better post game than Durant did in college. Durant was much more of a jump shooter overall. Chet obviously is I think the most efficient player at the rim in college basketball. And everything else he does, and he's got a 12.3% block rate. What guy shoots 47% from three and then blocks 12.3% of shots that he contests at the rim? It's just...
You said it before we went on air. It's one thing to be tall. It's another thing to have good timing. And we saw a guy in Brandon Clark at Gonzaga who had arguably the best timing you ever saw in college.
Shot block timing.
Other than Zion. Zion was out of this world timing-wise, but they didn't have the physical tools that Chet has.
Yeah, when you get a 7'6" wingspan and you have the shot block timing of Chet Holmgren, it's just an absolute nightmare at the rim. And with his size, it almost makes him scarier is that you don't have to put him at the rim. You can put him, more at that power forward spot, and you let him come over on weak side help. It's unreal. There was a play last night. I think it was Hickman got beat off a pick and roll, and Chet saw his guy going to the rim. Chet went underneath his defender to cut off the guard at the backside rim and got up and swatted it. And it's just that IQ already. As soon as his guard was beat at the three-point line, he was already cutting the angle off to get to the rim. And that's just what we're talking about. It's IQ and it's timing. Certain things that you almost can't teach when it comes to shot blocking. You either have that or you don't. Chet has it. We've just never seen anybody like this.
There's two other plays last night that it's just that confidence we were talking about. He had a play that he spun through the lane like a guard would, finished at the basket, and then we saw this little Dirk step back turnaround last night that we've got a few weeks left of conference play, and then we get into conference tournaments. Then we get to Selection Sunday, and what's going to be really fun is to watch these three guys, and Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, and Jabari Smith. There's still time to go. This race is not over.
That board's going to move. Absolutely.
Paolo got out to the early start. I think Jabari has really stepped onto the national scene and maybe took the lead kind of in the mid part of the season. Yep. And now we're seeing this unicorn come into through the third lane.
Just find his footing.
And Chet Holmgren, that I think a lot of scouts are starting to say, whoa, maybe this kid is what we thought coming out of high school. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this race down the stretch. A lot of time to go. I think seeing who really steps up in March Madness and the NCAA tournament is going to be a huge part of that. If one of these guys is able to take their team to an NCAA championship, that's going to be a big part as well. Let us know down in the comments. Let us know, Auburn fans, tell us what we don't know about Jabari Smith. Tell us why Jabari Smith deserves or maybe doesn't deserve to be a higher pick than Chet Holmgren. Duke fans, we want to hear it on Paul. What are we missing? Let us know in the comments. 1, 2, 3. Out of these three guys,
who you taking?
Who if you're an NBA GM and you've got to put your career, your franchise on the line, let us know down in the comments who you're picking. As always, if you like the content that we're putting out, hit that subscribe button. We'll be really ramping up as we get into the NCAA tournament. And like this video, share it. Appreciate all that. Appreciate you guys. We're having a lot of fun as this college basketball season is coming to an end, and I just can't wait to see it. It's so much fun on a team level, on an individual level. There's a lot of different Zags playing playing in the NBA now that we're getting a chance to see.
Amazing.
And as we wind down this college basketball season, I know that I'm going to kick my feet up, maybe get a little bit of popcorn and just enjoy it from home. We're going to have a different NCAA tournament season this year too. Last year we had no fans.
Full fans, baby. It's back.
We're going to have fans. We're going to have an actual NCAA tournament. And I'll tell you what, I cannot wait.